Attack on Titan Season 4 Episode 15, titled Soul Salvation. In the last episode of Attack on Titan, we saw Eren being absolutely ruthless towards Armin and Mikasa as he purposely went out of his way to hurt their feelings, and he even ended up fighting Armin, but what was his reasons for acting this way towards the two he holds most dear? After this, we saw Levi going up against Zeke and his now Titanized comrades, and once again we see humanity's strongest soldier triumph while he drags the defeated Zeke through the forest, which was definitely cool to see. And with the final portion of the episode, which unfortunately we didn't get to see until today, we see Levi cutting off Zeke's legs while he's in a cart to prevent him from transforming again. And while he's suffering, Zeke has a small flashback to when he was a child with Mr. Ksaver. So today I'm going to be breaking down and analysing this latest episode of Attack on Titan while clearing up some things you might have missed or were unsure about. So if you guys want to see more videos like this, do be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell. Also, make sure to check out the Discord server down below. With this being the penultimate episode for Season 4, at least as far as we know, I want to see if we can build a small community for Attack on Titan over on the Discord server. So if you're interested, make sure to check out that link in the description. But with that being said, let's get right into the video. We start off this episode seeing a young Zeke with his parents in the Liberia internment zone. And naturally, since they're Eldians, we see them being treated horribly by the Marlians around them. Frustrated at the situation they were born into, Grisha tells his young son Zeke that if he can't stand the world that he's going to have to change it himself. Shortly after this, we see Zeke a few years later undergoing the same training to become a warrior candidate that we saw a young Reiner take part in earlier on in the season. So this particular warrior test we are seeing Zeke take part in is to find the successor to Ksaver for the Beast Titan, and we can see Zeke struggling to keep up with all the other candidates. Also, a quick recap for those who might have forgot, we initially saw Ksaver back in Season 3 when Grisha and Faye were children. And at the time he wasn't a warrior, as we can see from his armband colour, and we also saw him appear again when Zeke reported his parents to Marley. So if any of you have been thinking he was kind of familiar before today, that's why. After finishing his warrior training, we see Zeke being taken to stay over at his grandparents' house. And what's ironic here is that Zeke was being taught by his grandparents about one form of history, while his parents were teaching him another perspective of the same events. With his parents Grisha and Dina being Eldian restorationists, and his grandparents being devout followers of Marley, Zeke would be learning both sides of history, and after going to his grandparents' house and learning from them, he returned to his parents only for them to either disprove what he was told by his grandparents, or claim that it never happened in the first place. So as a child, we can see that Zeke had great expectations from two incompatible sides. And to make things even worse, we can see that Zeke was never really too interested in becoming a warrior. The whole idea was just forced upon him for different reasons, which is definitely sad taking into account it seems he just wanted to be a normal child and spend some earnest time with his father, which unfortunately wasn't the reality that Zeke had. We then see Zeke returning to his warrior training, and we see a younger commander Magath telling Zeke that he's not cut out to be a warrior. As Zeke's fellow candidates mock and insult him for not being as good as them, we see Zeke picking up a ball in the street, which would lead to his fateful encounter with Mr. Ksaver. Zeke throws the baseball back to Mr. Ksaver, and he notices the red armband he wears, which signifies that he's a Marleyan warrior. Also, notice how in this episode we see Zeke playing catch with Mr. Ksaver, and this is the one time we see Zeke truly happy through this flashback. Him playing catch with Mr. Ksaver is definitely the reason he has those absolutely insane throws when he became the Beast Titan. The next scene we have is Zeke returning home and eavesdropping on the conversation between his parents and Grice. Grice being the relative of Falco and Colt, and one of the main figures of the restorationist group that we saw in the past. He's also the one who brought Grisha into the group as we saw in Season 3. Grice, Grisha and Dina are discussing the plan, and they say that the owl aka Eren Kruger says that Zeke needs to improve his test scores before he can try to interfere to make him a warrior. Frustrated at the fact that the plan's in jeopardy, Grisha tries to spur Zeke on by saying you can do it since you are a child. And it's made pretty evident through this episode that the priorities of Zeke's parents is the plan, and they don't really understand what Zeke wants, nor do they care. And speaking on the episode as a whole, this episode really just gives further insight as to why the older Zeke we see in the show doesn't speak too well of Grisha to Eren and says that we're both victims of your father. However, still trying to meet his parents' expectations, we see Zeke taking another shot at the warrior training, despite Magath saying he wasn't needed. And when he falls behind the other candidates again, we see Grisha disappointed in his son, leaving the field despite Zeke trying his best. And when he gets home, it just gets worse, as we see Zeke crying behind his bedroom door, while his father screams at the fact that the plan is failing, which really shows how different of a person Grisha was in the past. Shortly after this, we see Zeke meeting up with Mr. Ksaver again, and Mr. Ksaver lets Zeke know that he'd be better off not becoming a warrior due to the limited life Titan shifters have. Mr. Ksaver says the reason he became a warrior was because he wants to know the secret of the Titans. And the quick thing to note is how Mr. Ksaver was very different to Zeke with his Beast Titan. With Zeke's Beast Titan, we've seen how powerful it is in battle and the destruction it can cause, but Mr. Ksaver was a different case. Although we don't get an inside perspective of this, he says that he was absolutely useless in war, meaning that even though they had the same Titan, some are just more adept than others. And I guess Ymir and Porco are on his own point with this as well, since we've seen how much more powerful and different Galliard's Jaw Titan was compared to Ymir's. Shortly after this, Zeke returns home to his parents, and although he doesn't tell them, he overheard members of Marley and Public Safety talking about the Restorationist group and the fact that they're closing in on the Eldians. So Zeke, who's concerned for his parents, asks them not to do anything dangerous anymore, which causes Grisha and Dina to doubt their son, with Grisha screaming at Zeke for not understanding the severity of their cause. And from Grisha's perspective and what he went through with his sister Faye being killed for going outside of the walls, I can definitely understand his pent up rage and reasoning for wanting to take back their rights from Marley, but he's definitely being inconsiderate towards his son, especially when their actions also put Zeke's life at risk. Not knowing what to do about the situation, we see Zeke revealing everything to the only person he trusts, Mr. Ksaver. And upon hearing how terribly Zeke has been treated by his parents, Mr. Ksaver tells Zeke to turn them in, and we see Grisha and Dina being taken away for betraying Marley. And honestly, Zeke did nothing wrong. Years later, we see our older Zeke playing catch again with Mr. Ksaver, and to shorten the discussion that the two were having, Mr. Ksaver was approaching the end of his 13-year term as a shifter, and both of them discussed the power of the Founding Titan, with its ability to control memories and change the body compositions of Eldians. And after hearing how powerful it was, Zeke brings up the idea of whether the Founding Titan could prevent Eldians from ever having children, since if they were never born into the world in the first place, they wouldn't have to suffer. And upon hearing Zeke's words, Mr. Ksaver reflects on his past and how his wife, who was Marleyan, killed herself and their son when she found out Ksaver was lying about being a Marleyan. And while he cries about thinking about the past, Mr. Ksaver agrees with Zeke, saying how much better it would have been to never have been born in the first place, which gives birth to their euthanization plan. Zeke then says that he will inherit Mr. Ksaver's Beast Titan, steal the Founding Titan and free all of their Eldians. We then see Mr. Ksaver and Zeke discussing their euthanization plan, and this is where Zeke learnt the requirements to bypass the vow to renounce war with a Titan of royal blood and the Founding Titan. By bringing the two together, they'd be able to bypass the vow, and they would be able to access the true abilities of the Founding Titan. However, Zeke would only be a key, and he wouldn't be the one to actually give the order when everything is said and done. After this, we see Mr. Ksaver moments before being eaten by Zeke, smiling with the hopes that he will be able to bring their euthanization plan to fruition to ensure that no more Eldians will suffer in this world ever again, as we see Zeke become the next hold of the Beast Titan, picking up the glasses of the man he saw as his true father, which was definitely a very defining moment for Zeke and his character. Over the years, we see the process of Zeke gaining his allies through Yelena and the other followers, and Rana and Bertolt telling him about Eren Yeager, who holds the Founding Titan. Upon realizing that he has a brother who likely went through the same terrible upbringing that he did, Zeke not only decides that he needs to execute his plan with Eren, but that he also wants to save him. And in the episode before this one, we see Eren telling Mikasa and Armin how he met up with Zeke and Marley, and we learned that when they met up, they decided to work together for the sake of the euthanization plan to make sure that Eldians are never born again into this world, and that together they were going to save everyone, which is definitely an extreme but valid method to get rid of the existence of Titans. And with the final part of this episode, we see Zeke setting off the Thunder Spirit in his body while asking Mr. Ksaver to watch over him, and in this desperate attempt of Zeke's, both him and Levi get caught up in the explosion. And with that, we come to the end of the episode. First things first, I have to say that this was an absolutely amazing episode of Attack on Titan, and definitely one of my favourites so far. Mappa really did justice with Zeke's backstory, so I'll definitely rate this episode a 9.5 out of 10. It was absolutely amazing, and I'm definitely looking forward to the final episode next week. Also, I made a video going over Zeke's backstory, which we learned about today, a few weeks ago, so if you want another recap besides this video, do be sure to check it out in the description. And if there's anything I missed in this breakdown video, or I didn't touch upon as much as you would have liked, be sure to comment it down below and I'll be sure to respond. Last but not least, if you enjoyed the video, do be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Attack on Titan videos. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.